When actors started walking away from one of television's biggest hits, the reasons went far deeper than contract disputes or creative differences. Sanford and Son dominated the airwaves in the 1970s, consistently ranking among television's most watched programs, while breaking barriers for African American representation in primetime comedy. But behind the laughter and success lay a web of conflicts, financial disputes, and personal tensions that would ultimately drive away some of the show's most talented performers. The departures weren't just about money or screen time. They revealed uncomfortable truths about how the entertainment industry treated Black actors during television's golden age. What really happened behind the scenes was far more complex and troubling than audiences ever knew, involving power struggles that reflected broader issues of control, respect, and artistic integrity in Hollywood's treatment of minority performers. Sanford and Son premiered on NBC on January 14, 1972, and immediately became a cultural phenomenon that would run for 6 successful seasons until 1977. The show was an American adaptation of the British sitcom Steptoe and Son, created by Norman Lear, who had already revolutionized television comedy with All in the Family.
The series starred Red Fox as Fred Sanford, a cantankerous junk dealer living in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, and Demond Wilson as his long-suffering son Lamont. The chemistry between these two actors became the foundation of the show's success, with Fox's comedic timing and Wilson's straight-man reactions creating television magic that resonated with audiences across racial lines. The show's setting in the predominantly African-American community of Watts was significant, as it provided authentic representation of Black family life that had been largely absent from mainstream television. The junkyard setting allowed for physical comedy while addressing real social and economic issues facing urban African-American families in the 1970s. Supporting characters included Aunt Esther, Fred's religious sister-in-law, played by LaWanda Page, Grady Wilson, Fred's best friend, portrayed by Whitman Mayo, and various neighbors and recurring characters who populated the Sanford universe. Grady Wilson, these characters became beloved figures in American television history. The show's success was immediate and sustained, regularly appearing in a top 10 television programs throughout its run and earning Emmy nominations, while establishing Red Fox as one of television's biggest stars. However, the success also created pressures and expectations that would eventually lead to significant behind-the-scenes conflicts.
Red Fox's relationship with the show's producers and network executives became increasingly strained as Sanford and Son's popularity grew. Despite being the star and primary draw of one of television's biggest hits, Fox felt undervalued and underpaid compared to white television stars of similar stature and success. Fox's comedy career had begun decades before Sanford and Son, with his party records and nightclub performances establishing him as one of America's premier Black comedians. His transition to television represented a significant career milestone, but also brought new challenges related to creative control and financial compensation. The comedian's frustration with his contract became public knowledge when he engaged in highly publicized disputes with producers over salary and working conditions. These conflicts reflected broader issues about how the entertainment industry compensated African American performers, even when they were responsible for generating substantial profits. Fox's demands for increased compensation and creative input were often portrayed in the media as unreasonable or difficult, though industry observers noted that white stars with similar success levels typically received substantially higher compensation and more creative control over their projects. The tensions between Fox and the production team eventually led to his temporary departure from the show during the 1974-75 season, when he was replaced by storylines focusing on other characters while contract negotiations continued. This unprecedented situation demonstrated the extent of the conflicts behind the scenes. Demond Wilson's experience on Sanford and Son reflected many of the same industry challenges that affected his co-star, though his position as the supporting actor created different dynamics and pressures. Wilson had begun his career in theater and film before being cast as Lamont Sanford. As the show's success continued, Wilson sought greater creative input and more substantial storylines that would showcase his acting abilities beyond serving as a foil for Fox's comedic performances. His requests for character development and expanded roles often met resistance from producers who preferred to maintain the established formula. Wilson's concerns about typecasting became increasingly prominent as the series progressed, as he worried that his identification with the Lamont character might limit his future career opportunities. This concern was shared by many African American actors who found themselves pigeonholed in specific types of roles after achieving television success. The actor's negotiations for improved compensation and working conditions paralleled those of his co-star. Though Wilson's approach was typically more diplomatic and less confrontational than Fox's public battles with producers and network executives. Wilson's eventual decision to leave the show after its sixth season reflected his desire to pursue other opportunities and avoid being permanently identified with a single character, a choice that would prove both challenging and ultimately successful for his long-term career development. LaWanda Page's portrayal of Aunt Esther Anderson became one of television's most memorable supporting characters, with her religious fervor and constant battles with Fred Sanford providing some of the show's funniest moments. Page's background in comedy and her friendship with Red Fox from their nightclub days contributed to their on-screen chemistry. Page's character represented an important female voice in the Sanford household, providing moral guidance and religious perspective that balanced Fred's secular outlook and often inappropriate behavior. Her presence allowed the show to explore themes related to faith, family obligation, and generational differences within African American communities. The actress's career before Sanford and Son included work in nightclubs and comedy clubs where she had developed her distinctive style and comedic timing. Her transition to television required adapting her adult-oriented comedy material for network television standards. Page's working relationship with the show's producers was generally positive, though she shared many of the same concerns about compensation and creative input that affected other cast members. Her loyalty to Red Fox and their personal friendship influenced her decisions about contract negotiations and career choices. The character of Aunt Esther became so popular that Page continued playing variations of the role in subsequent Sanford and Son spin-offs and related projects, demonstrating the lasting impact of her performance and the audience's affection for the character. Whitman Mayo's Grady Wilson became a fan favorite through his portrayal of Fred Sanford's bumbling but well-meaning best friend. Mayo's background in theater and television provided him with the skills necessary to create a character that was both comedic and sympathetic. The actor's approach to the Grady character involved careful balance between comedy and dignity, avoiding stereotypical portrayals while still providing the physical comedy and verbal humor that the role required. This balance reflected Mayo's professional experience and his understanding of responsible representation. Mayo's relationship with the production team was generally collaborated, though he also experienced the same compensation and creative control issues that affected other cast members. His professionalism and reliability made him a valued member of the ensemble cast. The actor's decision to pursue other opportunities, including starring in his own short-lived spin-off series, Grady, reflected his desire to expand his career beyond the supporting role that had made him famous. This ambition was typical of many successful television actors seeking to avoid typecasting. Mayo's continued work in television and film after Sanford and Son demonstrated his versatility as a performer, though he would always be most remembered for his portrayal of the lovable Grady Wilson. The financial structure of television production in the 1970s created significant disparities in compensation between stars and supporting actors, particularly affecting African American performers who had fewer opportunities for negotiating leverage compared to their white counterparts. Network television contracts during this period typically favored producers and networks over performers, with actors receiving limited residual payments and little creative control over their characters or storylines. These arrangements became particularly problematic for successful shows that generated substantial profits. The success of Sanford and Son created enormous profits for NBC and the production companies involved, but the financial benefits did not proportionally flow to the cast members who were responsible for the show's popularity and cultural impact. Red Fox's public battles over compensation highlighted the broader issue of how African American entertainers were valued by the television industry, even when they were starring in hit shows that generated millions in advertising revenue and syndication profits. The precedents set by these compensation disputes would influence future negotiations for African American television performers and contribute to ongoing discussions about equity and representation in the entertainment industry. The creative control issues that affected Sanford and Son cast members reflected broader patterns in television production, where actors, particularly African American actors, had limited input into storylines, character development, and the overall direction of their shows. Writers' rooms for television comedies in the 1970s were predominantly white and male, creating situations where African American characters and storylines were developed by writers who may have lacked authentic understanding of the communities and experiences they were portraying. Cast members' requests for more authentic dialogue, culturally appropriate storylines, and realistic character development often met resistance from producers who preferred to maintain formulaic approaches that had proven commercially successful. The tension between authenticity and commercial appeal created ongoing conflicts between performers who wanted to represent their communities accurately and producers who prioritized broad audience appeal and advertiser-friendly content. These creative control issues would become increasingly important as African American actors gained more prominence in television and began advocating for greater input into the projects that featured their performances. The working conditions on television sets in the 1970s varied significantly depending on the show's budget, network support, and the relationship between cast and crew. Sanford and Son's success provided certain advantages in terms of production values and support staff, but also created pressures related to maintaining quality and meeting deadlines. The demanding schedule of weekly television production required long hours and intensive work from all cast members, with principal actors often working 6 days per week during filming seasons. This schedule could be physically and emotionally exhausting, particularly for older performers like Redd Foxx. Set dynamics reflected broader social and professional hierarchies that existed in Hollywood, with established stars receiving preferential treatment, while supporting actors and crew members had less influence over working conditions and production decisions. The professional relationships between cast members were generally positive, though the pressures of success and ongoing contract disputes created tensions that occasionally affected the working atmosphere and collaborative spirit of the production. Union representation and labor protections for television actors were less comprehensive in the 1970s than they would become in later decades, leaving performers with fewer resources for addressing workplace issues and compensation disputes. The typecasting challenges faced by Sanford and Son cast members reflected broader issues affecting actors who became identified with specific characters or types of roles. This issue was particularly acute for African American performers who had fewer opportunities to demonstrate their range in diverse projects. Television success could become a double-edged sword, providing financial security and public recognition while potentially limiting future career opportunities if casting directors and producers viewed actors as suitable only for similar roles. The concern about typecasting influenced many cast members' decisions about contract renewals and their willingness to continue with successful shows versus pursuing other opportunities that might showcase different aspects of their talents. Industry professionals noted that African American actors faced additional challenges in overcoming typecasting compared to white performers, as there were fewer starring roles and opportunities for demonstrating versatility in mainstream entertainment. The long-term career trajectories of Sanford and Son cast members would demonstrate both the benefits and limitations of television success, with some actors successfully transitioning to other projects, while others remained primarily identified with their Sanford and Son characters. The behind-the-scenes tensions that affected Sanford and Son production included personality conflicts, professional disagreements, and the pressures created by maintaining a successful show while dealing with ongoing contract disputes and creative differences. Redd Foxx's reputation as a demanding performer sometimes created friction with directors, writers, and other cast members who had different approaches to comedy and professional relationships. His nightclub background had accustomed him to a different type of creative environment than television production required. The generational differences between cast members also contributed to varying perspectives on professional conduct, career goals, and the importance of maintaining harmonious working relationships versus advocating for individual interests. Media coverage of behind-the-scenes conflicts often focused on the most dramatic aspects of disputes, while overlooking the legitimate professional and creative concerns that motivated cast members. 10 positions in contract negotiations and creative discussions. The resolution of conflicts required ongoing negotiation and compromise from all parties involved, with the show's continued success depending on finding ways to address cast members' concerns while maintaining production schedules and quality standards. The broader social context of the 1970s influenced how Sanford and Son was received and the pressures faced by its cast members. The civil rights movement had increased awareness of representation issues, while the entertainment industry was still adapting to demands for more authentic and respectful portrayals of African American communities. Television's role in shaping public perceptions of African American families and communities made the show's content and cast members' public personas particularly significant beyond simple entertainment value. This responsibility created additional pressure on performers who understood their cultural importance. The show's success coincided with increasing African American political and economic power, which created expectations that successful Black entertainers would use their platforms to address social issues and advocate for community interests. Industry changes during the 1970s included increased opportunities for African American performers, but also continued limitations and systemic barriers that affected career development and creative opportunities for minority artists. The legacy of Sanford and Son would be measured not only by its entertainment value, but also by its contribution to changing television's approach to African American representation and the precedents it set for future productions. The spin-off attempts and related projects that emerged from Sanford and Son's success reflected both the commercial potential of the franchise and the desire of cast members to continue working in variations of the roles that had brought them fame. Sanford Arms, which premiered in 1977 without Red Fox or Demond Wilson, attempted to continue the series with new characters living in the Sanford house to the franchise's appeal. Greedy, starring Whitman Mayo, provided the actor with an opportunity to carry his own series, though the show's brief run highlighted the challenges of translating supporting characters into starring roles. Other projects attempted to capitalize on the Sanford and Son brand, including television movies and specials that reunited various cast members, though none achieved the success or cultural impact of the original series. The limited success of these spin-offs demonstrated both the unique chemistry of the original cast and the difficulty of recreating the specific circumstances that had made Sanford and Son such a phenomenon. The long-term impact of Sanford and Son on television comedy extended far beyond its original run, influencing subsequent sitcoms and establishing precedents for African American representation in Sanford, mainstream entertainment that continue to resonate today. The show's success proved that predominantly African American casts could attract diverse audiences and generate substantial profits, opening doors for future productions featuring minority performers in starring roles. The comedic style, established by Red Fox and the ensemble cast, influenced generations of comedians and actors who studied the show's approach to character development, timing, and the balance between humor and social commentary. Contemporary television creators continue to reference Sanford and Son as an example of successful comedy that addressed serious social issues while maintaining broad appeal and commercial success. The show's place in television history reflects both its entertainment value and its cultural significance as a breakthrough program that helped change industry attitudes about African American performers and audiences. The personal costs of television success became apparent in the later careers and lives of Sanford and Son cast members, as the pressures and conflicts associated with the show's production had lasting effects on their professional and personal relationships. Red Fox's later career included continued performing and attempts to recapture his television success, though he never again achieved the same level of mainstream popularity. His financial difficulties in later years reflected the complex relationship between television success and long-term financial security. Demond Wilson's post-Sanford career included continued acting work and eventual transition to religious ministry, demonstrating his successful adaptation to life beyond his most famous role. His ability to maintain dignity and purpose after television success provided a positive example for other former child and young adult actors. LaWanda Page continued performing and remained connected to the entertainment industry while dealing with health challenges that ultimately ended her career. Her legacy as Aunt Esther remains strong among fans who appreciated her contributions to the show's success. Whitman Mayo's later work included continued acting and occasional reunions with former cast members, though he also faced the ongoing challenge of being primarily remembered for a single role despite his broader talents and experience. The collective experience of the Sanford and Son cast reflected broader patterns affecting television performers who achieved sudden fame and then had to navigate the entertainment industry's complex demands and limitations. The industry changes that occurred during and after Sanford and Son's run included increased awareness of representation issues, improved compensation structures for television performers, and greater recognition of the creative contributions made by African American entertainers. Union advocacy and legal precedents established during this period helped improve working conditions and compensation equity for television actors, particularly those from minority backgrounds who had historically been undervalued by the industry. The success of Sanford and Son contributed to increased investment in programming featuring African American performers and storylines, though progress remained inconsistent and subject to broader economic and social factors affecting the entertainment industry. Educational institutions and industry organizations began developing programs and initiatives designed to increase opportunities for minority performers and address the systemic barriers that had limited their participation in mainstream entertainment. The ongoing legacy of the show continues to influence discussions about representation, authenticity, and equity in contemporary television production, with many of the issues first highlighted by Sanford and Son cast members remaining relevant to current industry debates. The cultural significance of Sanford and Son extended beyond entertainment to include its role changing American perceptions of African American families and communities during a crucial period in the nation's social development. The show's popularity among diverse audiences demonstrated the universal appeal of well-developed characters and quality writing, regardless of the racial or cultural background of the performers involved. International syndication of the show helped spread American comedy and African American cultural expressions to global audiences, contributing to international understanding of American social dynamics and community relationships. Academic studies of the show have examined its role in television history, its influence on subsequent programming, and its reflection of changing social attitudes during the 1970s civil rights era. The preservation of Sanford and Son episodes and the continued availability of the show through various media platforms ensures that future generations can appreciate both its entertainment value and its custom center. Historical significance as a groundbreaking television program. The lessons learned from the Sanford and Son experience continue to inform contemporary discussions about talent representation, creative control, and the responsibility of entertainment industry professionals to treat performers fairly, regardless of their background or the commercial success of their projects. Industry professionals studying the show's production history can identify patterns and practices that either supported or hindered the success and satisfaction of cast members, providing guidance for creating more equitable and sustainable working environments. The documentation of cast members' experiences and concerns provides valuable insight into the challenges faced by African American entertainers during a transitional period in American entertainment history, when opportunities were expanding but systemic barriers remained significant. Contemporary actors and performers can learn from both the successes and difficulties experienced by Sanford and Son cast members, understanding how to navigate similar challenges while advocating for fair treatment and creative fulfillment. The ongoing relevance of these issues demonstrates that while progress has been made in addressing representation and equity in entertainment, many of the fundamental challenges identified by Sanford and Son cast members continue to affect performers today, making their experiences and advocacy efforts historically significant and practically valuable for current industry participants. If you're as fascinated by these behind-the-scenes revelations about one of television's most beloved comedies as we are, go ahead and like this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What surprised you most about the real reasons actors left Sanford and Son? Do you think the entertainment industry has made enough progress in addressing the issues these performers faced? We want to hear your perspective on how television comedy has evolved and what lessons we can learn from this groundbreaking show's complex history. Then, hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our coverage of classic television and the untold stories behind your favorite shows. Thanks for watching!